So as I'm sure most of you probably saw by now, yesterday the NBA announced the recipients of the first and second All-Rookie teams, and our very own Patrick Williams was selected to the All-Rookie second team, just as Kobe White had in the previous season. Now, as you can see from the list of players selected, this seems pretty fair, although I personally would have put Emmanuel quickly ahead of Jae'Sean Tate for the first team, but for the most part, the league got this one right. Of course, I'm sure some Bulls fans are likely going to feel that Patrick Williams should have been selected to the first team, but if we're going to be honest with ourselves, the guys selected ahead of him for the first team did have better rookie seasons than he did. And that's not to say that P. Will had a bad rookie season, but he had a bit more of a quieter, under the radar type rookie season, one in which he performed well, but for the most part did what he was asked to. And for a 19-year-old kid, he should get promise. You know, he showed good promise and poise, but in this video I want to talk about the things I want to see from Patrick Williams in his sophomore season. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. So I feel like me creating this channel has given me great insight into a multitude of different perspectives from Bulls fans, because I get a lot of comments on videos where people share their thoughts and opinions, which I always welcome, by the way. But the reason I like this is because over the course of this past season, I've seen varying degrees of praise and criticism of Patrick Williams. Now, I would have liked to see more from him, I won't lie, which I'll get into in a little bit. But for me, starting out skeptical about this pick and then seeing the second youngest player from the draft go from draft night to starting in his very first NBA game nearly 1 month later, to then guarding the likes of Giannis, LeBron, and Kawhi Leonard all in his first month in the league and holding his own against those best players in the league. That was very impressive to me. Now, I do think some Bulls fans do hype him a bit more than they probably should. I do think it's way too soon to be proclaiming him to be the next superstar on the Bulls. And then, of course, there's the other side of the token where you have guys calling him a bust and how this was a waste of a pick, which I don't think is fair or accurate at all. Now, I think the biggest knock on Patrick Williams from this past season was his lack of aggression on offense. I don't think anyone will deny that he was a solid defender. Obviously, he still needs to improve in areas of his defense, specifically his lateral quickness, because it's not like he's an elite defender right now. But then again, who is coming right out of the gate into the league and making all defensive teams in their rookie year? But a lot of fans were disappointed with him offensively because there was a lot of nights when the Bulls really needed him to step up and provide some scoring relief for Zach Lavine or Vucevic when Lavine was out of the lineup because of COVID. And you saw on a lot of nights Patrick Williams would finish the game with 2 or 4 points on 4 or 5 shot attempts. It's not that he was taking bad shots or it was just incredibly inefficient from the field that would lead him to only score 4 points. No, it was more so that he was just timid on offense and wouldn't take open shots or drive aggressively to the basket when given the opportunity. I mean, when you look at his numbers in terms of his efficiency on offense, they're not that bad, shooting 48.3% from the field, 39% from 3, with an effective field goal percentage of 53.4%. These are solid numbers even if you're not a rookie. He was actually more efficient from the field in terms of true shooting than most of his rookie class. The problem was he was only averaging 7 attempts per game for the season. To put that into perspective, Zach Lavine was averaging 19.4 attempts per game this season. Not saying Patrick Williams needs to be taking as many shots as Lavine because Lavine is our go-to scorer, but he's got to be putting up more attempts than just 7 a game. Now, I do think what people forget is that Patrick Williams, when he was drafted, we knew that he wasn't going to be a strong offensive player out of the game. Where he really excelled at was his defense, but the offensive potential was there, knowing that he has the ability to become a great two-way player as long as he could continue working on the offensive side of his game. So the fact that people were harping on his lack of aggression on offense surprised me to an extent, because we knew this going into the season, that that was not an element of his game that had to be perfected, and in fact, it would likely take a few seasons to develop. But with all of that being said, that's the first thing I want to see from Patrick Williams going into next season, is his increased aggression on offense. I'm not saying he needs to go from averaging 9 points per game that he had this season all the way to suddenly averaging 20. Like, that's just not realistic, as I've mentioned before. I do think P. Will has, to develop and progress as a player, and that development and progression as a player is going to be a slow and steady one. He's not going to have a breakout season in his second or third year and all of a sudden become an all-star. It's just not going to happen. But what I want to see is him increase his shot attempts from 7 per game to 11. He needs to be putting up at least 4 more attempts per game than he did last year. And with that, I would hope that we would see his scoring averages go up as a result, somewhere in the 12 to 14 points per game range. I think that's a good progression from a rookie to a sophomore season. Now, I know some are going to probably say, or they're thinking, well, that's not enough. P. Will needs to improve his offense significantly more than that. Well, give it some time. The kid is mainly known for his defense. I would much rather see him perfect his craft on defense, given it's something the Bulls greatly need, and then slowly develop his offensive game over the years. The other thing about Williams' rookie season that, I wouldn't say was a disappointment, but I would have liked to have seen more, was his playmaking. I mean, you can see from these highlights that I'm showing right now, which granted, I know this was just a pickup game with some other NBA players and other ballers, but he clearly possesses the skills to be an effective playmaker with good court vision. And if you've seen any of his college or high school highlights, he is actually a solid passer and has a great sense of managing the flow of offense. And I think some might have already known this, but Williams was actually a point guard in his early high school days. And even this past season, Billy Donovan had him bringing up the ball, running the point at various times in a game. So he is capable of being more of a floor general than the Bulls do in fact need, and him only averaging 1.4 assists per game this past season is not cutting it. I think he's more capable of getting guys involved on offense and finding opportunities to feed guys like Vucevic in the post or kick it out to the perimeter, just based on his highlights from his college days. I would hope anyway that his assist numbers would go up to at least averaging 3 assists per game in this upcoming season. The other thing I want to see from Patrick Williams that we didn't see as much this past season, and again, this relates to his offense and scoring as I mentioned before, but I want to see him be more aggressive in drawing contact inside and getting to the foul line. Now, P. Will isn't the best free throw shooter. He only shot 72.8% this past season, but he also only averaged 1.8 free throw attempts per game. Zach Lavine, on the other hand, probably again not the best comparison, but he averaged 5 free throw attempts per game. In today's NBA, with how soft it's gotten and the ticky-tack calls that come from referees, you can easily drive to the basket more and force contact for a chance at free throws or even an and one. Again, this all ties back to P. Will's aggressiveness in driving to the basket because he's a big guy, great physique, 6'7", 215 pounds. He has the ability to power through in the paint, and even if he's not drawing contact, make more plays going inside and giving yourself more opportunities to score easy buckets. We just didn't see enough of that in this past season. Occasionally here and there, but for him to really up those offensive numbers, he needs to be driving to the paint more often than not, and not just standing out on the corner and waiting for the ball to come to him. Now, you can argue a lot of this and P. Will not being aggressive enough on offense was due to coaching and Billy Donovan not utilizing him effectively. And I do actually agree with that to an extent. I mean, I said a handful of times throughout the season that they need to be getting Patrick Williams more involved on offense. And with the way that Billy Donovan plays him as more of a 3-and-D wing player, hanging out on the corner probably isn't the best use of his skills with his athleticism, his strength, and even his basketball IQ for a young age. I mean, it's no surprise that the Bulls offense is going to run through Lavine and Vucevic. And then of course you add Kobe White on top of that, then yeah, Williams isn't going to get as many looks and touches, but that's also on the coach to ensure that enough plays and opportunities are being run through your rookie who you're trying to develop in an offensive player. Because again, he's shown that he has the ability to do that given his efficiency on offense. Like, I could understand if Billy Donovan was avoiding feeding the ball to Williams and getting touches on offense. If he was constantly turning the ball over, taking bad shots, or shooting below 30% from the field, then sure. I mean, at that point, he's a liability on offense. And really, you would just have him stand in the corner and have him hit an occasional 3 or 2. But no, he actually was decent at scoring the ball when he puts up shots and gets those opportunities. The same thing can be said about his playmaking. I know that Billy Donovan did have Patrick Williams run the point occasionally in the season, but even that aside, you can run more plays through him as a facilitator as opposed to being more of a catch and shoot type player. I still like Billy Donovan, but these were some of the things that bother me with his coaching this past season. That and just his general rotations at times. And then finally, what I also want to see from Patrick Williams is taking an even further step on defense. We all know that Patrick is a very capable defender. I mean, you can argue he was the Bulls' best all-around defender this past season, but even with that, it's not like he's an elite defender that is going to be competing for Defensive Player of the Year, which I'm not saying he needs to be getting to that level starting next season, but I would like to see him be more aggressive and scrappy on defense, using those big hands to poke the ball away from his opponents and snatching up bad passes. He averaged just under 1 steal per game and 0.6 blocks this past season. I would be ecstatic if he averaged 1.5 steals and 1 block per game next season, which, yes, I know that's actually a big jump from those statistical categories anyway, and especially for a rookie going into a sophomore season. But I also have very high expectations of this kid, and really for the Bulls, if we want to start showing that we are an attractive free agency destination, and especially making the playoffs next season, we need a strong performance from Patrick to really help the Bulls get to that next level. We have to revisit this video after next season completes and see if Patrick actually met, exceeded, or fell below my expectations. We'll check it out at that time. But I want to know what your guys' expectations of Patrick Williams are next season. What are the things you want to see the most from him going into next year? Let me know in the comments below, and as always guys, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next one.